If someone handed you the CEO role of your company tomorrow, what would you actually do first? Not what would you say in a performance review, not what sounds impressive in a leadership conversation, but what would you actually do? Most people, when I ask this, go straight into vision, strategy, market positioning. But here is the truth. The highest performing organizations in the world are not failing because of strategy. They are failing because of something far more invisible. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through what I would do, not as a theory, as a precise psychological diagnosis of what is actually breaking your organizations right now. Whether you are a CEO, a team lead, a senior manager, or someone who simply works within a system that frustrates you every single day, this is for you. The real problem is upstream. I often have conversations with a group of mid-career professionals, high performers, experienced people who have been in their industries for over a decade. I ask them one question. If you could fix one thing immediately in your organization, what it would be? The answers were almost identical across the industries, across company sizes. Number 1, clarity in thinking. Number 2, clarity in communication. Number 3, clarity in assigning the right work to the right people. Number 4, setting timelines that actually are realistic. Number 5, tracking what is going wrong before it becomes a disaster. 5 different answers, but here is what they all missed. They are not 5 separate problems. They are 5 symptoms of the same single problem. And that one problem starts before any meeting is called, before any task is assigned, before any deadline is set. It starts in the mind of the person leading. So if I were made a CEO today, I would not start with strategy. I would start there. Clarity in thinking. Here is something I want you to sit with. Every task that gets assigned in your organization started as a thought in someone's head. Every project, every brief, every requirement, and if that thought was not clear, truly clear, not just roughly clear, then everything downstream is already contaminated. The manager who says, just make it look more professional, does not have a communication problem. They have a thinking problem. They do not know what they actually want, and they have pass that confusion directly into someone else's work. I see this constantly. A senior leader calls a meeting to align on a project. 2 hours later, the team walks out more confused than when they walked in. Not because the leader could not speak clearly, but because the leader had not thought clearly before they called the room together. There is a discipline that most organizations never teach and never measure. The discipline of thinking before you assign, thinking before you speak, thinking before you commit. And I do not mean thinking the way productivity culture uses that word as a vague instructions to slow down and reflect. I mean the structured, rigorous process of asking yourself, what exactly do I want to achieve? What does success look like in precise terms? What does the person receiving this task need to, how to get there without ambiguity? If you cannot answer those 3 questions before you even open your mouth, you are not ready to assign the work. As a CEO, this would be the first cultural shift I would drive, not a values poster on the wall, not a new project management tool, a standard, a non-negotiable. Before you assign anything, you must be able to articulate what done looks like. Simple but transformational. Clarity in communication. The second thing I would fix is almost always misunderstood. Most organizations say they have a communication problem. What they actually have is a transmission problem. Here is the difference. A communication problem means the right thought exists and is being expressed badly. A transmission problem means the thought itself is incomplete and communication is simply exposing that incompleteness. When a stakeholder asks for one thing in week 1 and a contradictory thing in week 3, the team calls it changing requirement. But look closer. The requirement did not change. The stakeholders' thinking clarified, and the cost of that clarification was paid by the team. This is the real price of a poor cognitive clarity at the top. It does not show up as a thinking failure, it shows up as a communication failure, a morale failure, a delivery failure, a missed deadline, and everyone looks at the wrong place for the solution. They send the team to the communication skills workshop, they implement better meeting structures, they buy a new collaboration tool. None of it touches the actual problem. As a CEO, I would build a communication standard that starts with output, not input. Before any requirement, brief, or project gets handed down, it must pass the clarity test. Can the person receiving it describe it back to you in their own words exactly what they are building and why? If they cannot, the communication has not happened yet. The words may have been spoken, but the meaning has not been transferred. That is the standard I would hold. Right person, right work. I want to tell you something that will make a lot of managers uncomfortable. The most expensive resource in your organization is not technology, it is not office space, it is not even salary. It is a skilled person doing work they are not skilled for. I have watched organizations spend months on a project and wonder why the quality is poor. The timeline keeps slipping and the team is exhausted. And when you look carefully, the core problem is almost always this: the work was assigned to the available person, not the right person. Availability is not qualification, but in most organizations, availability is the primary hiring criteria for a task. Who has bandwidth is the wrong question. Who has mastery is the right one. There is a reason surgeons do not perform each other's specialties simply because one of them has a free afternoon. That logic seems obvious in medicine, but in most corporate settings, we violate it constantly, and the damage is invisible. When a non-specialist does specialist work, the output is not dramatically wrong. It is subtly wrong, slightly off, just below the bar. And that slightly off quality compounds over time. It compounds across projects. It compounds into a culture where good enough is the ceiling. As a CEO, I would build a competency map before I build anything else. Who in this organization is genuinely masterful at what? Where are we using the B-level talent on A-level problems? Where are we wasting A-level talent on B-level work? This is not about job titles. Titles are political. This is about honest, precise skill level assessment and then the discipline to match accordingly. Realistic timelines. We live an era where a new kind of pressure has entered the workplace, and most leaders have not named it correctly yet. AI can now generate a project plan in 30 seconds. It can produce a timeline, a resource allocation, a risk register, a milestone chart, all in the time it takes you to finish your coffee. And this is a trap because the plan looks complete, it looks precise, it looks authoritative, but it was built by a machine that does not know your team, does not know your organization's current capacity, does not know the 3 other projects your best people are already carrying, does not know that 2 of your key contributors are on leave next month, does not know that a similar project took twice as long last time because of a stakeholder approval bottleneck that is still unresolved. AI gives you a mathematically logical timeline. Reality gives you human one. The professionals who are suffering most right now are the ones who are accepting AI generated timelines and defending them to their clients as if they were real, then watching their credibility erode when the delivery does not match the promise. As a CEO, my standard would be simple. Every AI generated timeline must be reviewed, challenged, and validated against lived experience by the people doing the work before it is committed. Not as a formality, as a genuine stress test. Have we done something like this before? How long it would actually take? What broke? What do we now know that the machine does not know? That conversation, that 30-minute human calibration is what turns an AI output into a credible professional commitment. Tracking deviations. The final thing I would fix is also the most neglected one. Most organizations track competition. Very few organizations track deviation. And here is a difference. Tracking completion asks what we delivered. Tracking deviation asks where did we start to drift and why. Completion tracking is reactive and deviation tracking is proactive. In an organization that only tracks completion, a problem becomes visible on the day it explodes. In an organization that tracks deviation, the same problem is visible 3 weeks earlier as a small fixable signal. One produces crisis management, the other produces leadership. And here is what I see in most teams. They know something is going wrong, they can feel it, the conversations are getting harder, the stand-ups are getting longer, the energy in the room has changed, but no one surfaces it. Why? Because the culture has trained them not to. Because surfacing a problem too early feels like admitting failure. Because the professional expectation is that you manage it yourself and escalate only when you absolutely have to. This is how small deviations become disasters. As a CEO, I would make the surfacing of early stage problems the most professionally respected behavior in the organization. Not penalized, not evidence of poor performance, rewarded. You told us 3 weeks ago that timeline was at risk. You were right. Because you told us we had options. Thank you. That response, repeated constantly at every level of the organizations, build a culture where reality is surfaced early. And an organization that operates on early reality is an organization that can actually lead. So if I were made CEO today, I would not start with the product. I would not start with the market. I would not start with the financials. I would start with 5 questions. Are the people on this organization thinking clearly before they commit? Are they communicating with precision or with approximation? Is the work matched to genuine mastery or to the availability? Are the timelines honest or are they hopeful? Is the organization rewarding early truth or punishing it? 5 questions, every answer is a diagnostic. This is not a leadership theory. This is the actual work of building an organization that performs at the level of its own potential. Most organizations never reach to that level, not because they lack strategy, because they lack the psychological discipline to ask the honest questions first.